Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Full-Time Whittle Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the chairwoman of the Wigan Athletic Supporters Club, Caroline Molyneux. How are you doing, Caroline?
Hi, Jay. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. And earlier this week, we had some amazing news in relation to the Phoenix 21 Limited Group, as they are set to become the new owners of Wigan Athletic, subject to EFL approval. What was your reaction to this amazing piece of news that fans have been praying for months?
We've heard the word relieved over the last few days, used a lot, but we absolutely were, because so many people have worked so hard, and it just looks like we finally will have something positive to look forward to as Wigan fans. And so relief was the first thing. Obviously, for a few weeks, we've thought that it will happen, and whilst it's not been publicly out there, we thought it could happen. But we've had so many false starts, haven't we, over the last few months, that we didn't want to count any chickens and before they've hatched. But relief was the main thing. And then, like, anticipation, really, about what's to come in the future, because this group do seem really positive, and I'm sure you're going to ask me a little bit more about that, but very optimistic about what's going to happen to Wigan in the future.
Can you describe the moment when you did find out the news, and what? Obviously, you mentioned your initial reaction there, but as someone who's been so closely involved since day one, really, it must have been an unforgettable moment for you and everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't believe it. What one of the committee members said, "We'll believe it when the ink's dry." That was one of the committee members, Marie. Her reaction to it was that, because we've been through so much. But we did hear the news on Monday. We'd sort of been expecting it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There was lots of legalities being checked and contracts being checked and so on. So we were, I was waiting with bated breath for that text or, that email to come through to sort of confirm it. But when it did, and we got the news that contracts had been exchanged, at that point, I just felt an overwhelming sense that things were looking up, and we could actually talk as well. We could actually speak a little bit more about what was going on, and that was another sense of relief. That I can talk to you and talk to sort of Barry and others over the next few days. I know Jason was speaking to Barry last night about some of the things that have happened over the last 9 months. So it was really positive. We felt really positive, and then obviously I got on the phone to the rest of the committee, and the news broke, and fans just started sending positive messages to each other on Twitter, on social media. It was just a lovely evening, wasn't it, on Monday? I don't know. I'm sure you felt the same, Jay.
Absolutely, it was indescribable, really, because it's news that we've all waited for so long, and at times we probably thought it was never going to come, and it did. And you mentioned there that you've been able to talk and talk about things over the last 9 months. Has it been quite frustrating that you've not had the freedom to kind of say what you think during this period?
I wouldn't say it's frustrating, because it's been the right thing to do. So I think it's been more frustrating probably for the fans. But in terms of what we've been doing, it's just been, it's not been difficult, because it has absolutely been the right thing to do. One of the things that the new group have said to us, that we've managed to build a trusting relationship already over the last month or so, and that's because of the way we've dealt with things all the way through the process. So that is much more important than having to put a statement out every week or whatever it might be. So the fans have been frustrated at times, but we have got there, and like I said, it's been through the right way all the way through. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm frustrated, just happy that we've been able to play a part now, and we'll be able to tell our story, I'm sure, over the coming weeks as everything's finalised.
Absolutely, it's really exciting times for everyone involved at the moment, and And obviously, we'll cast yourself back now to last month, a couple of weeks ago. When did you first hear about the interest of the Bahrain group, and how quickly did things progress?
So the Bahraini group were interested right from the start. So sort of before we had the Spanish bid. So they have been interested twice. Of course, you'll know that the Spanish group, they had exclusivity. And so that at that point, obviously, lots of other bidders, I think Lisa spoke about it last night, but lots of other bidders sort of had to be put on hold. And the Bahraini group were one of those. But they've remained interested throughout the whole process. And then in January, when obviously the Spanish bid fell through, they were back interested on the same day. On the same day that the Spanish bid fell through, they were that keen. And over the last few weeks, as things have gained momentum, one of the things that's really been very refreshing for me is their professionalism, their confidentiality. They've not really been interested in like a media circus. They've been more interested in getting the job done, getting the purchase sorted, and buying the football club, saving the football club, and that speaks volumes for them. In my opinion, that the main priority hasn't been speaking to everybody and sundry about what they're doing. It's been, let's get the contracts sorted.
Absolutely. And I think the incoming chairman, Mr. Tal Al-Hanid, even said in his statement on Monday night, actions speak louder than words. And obviously what you just said there, the professionalism is demonstrated, and obviously focusing on rescuing the club and finding a deal, that's a massive positive. And in terms of yourselves and the supporters club, what conversations have you had with the group, and what's the contact been like? I know you've built a trusting relationship, as you said.
Yeah, so we've been in contact with a number of the group over the last few weeks. Obviously, we liaise with the administrators as well. So when we said, we were liaising with the administrators regularly, at times it has been on a daily basis, just getting feedback on where they're at, they've been at with the Bahrainis. But in terms of the group, I've had regular contact with Mal Brannigan, who is the incoming CEO. Has a great track record. I've met with him and had some really positive conversations about what we might do in the future, and not just for the supporters club, for the wider fan base. He's very, very keen to get all fans' views in as many different forums as he possibly can. And his mantra is that the fans are the heart of the club, which is, exactly what we did this whole sort of crowdfunder and everything for, was that throughout this administration, the fans have been at the heart of everything. And I can see that in Mal's, vision for the club and the group's vision for the club. There are others involved as well. So there's a team, there is a really professional team that have got a lot of experience in football and business and marketing. And again, that gives me lots of reassurances that there'll be new ideas in the club. Throughout this process, it's made us as a supporters club very knowledgeable about the ins and outs of the football club. So things like the financial losses that the previous owners and the Whelan family were footing for the football club. And generally in football, it just can't go on like that. We need to try to make football more sustainable. One of the ways we can do that, of course, is the academy, but we're going to need a good marketing team, commercial team. They're talking about things like making the most of the stadium and the assets and the things that are positive about Wigan. I know that Lisa's mentioned a lot about the Warriors and, working together with the Warriors to make the most of that stadium and everything that goes with it, so that we've got enough money to keep sustainable for the future. So they've got lots and lots of plans that are really positive, but also realistic, not pie in the sky, certainly doable at Wigan, and certainly will bring about the next era of football at Wigan.
Absolutely. And I think it, like you said, perfectly with football. and the finances involved, it is getting more and more unsustainable, especially in terms of the top flight and even the championship. So for me to hear that, so a lot of Wigan fans, I imagine it's almost music to their ears, because that's what would be right for Wigan Athletic, because we want to have Wigan Athletic in 5 years to come, 10 years to come, and so on. I want my grandkids to be able to watch Wigan Athletic, and I'm sure that sentiment we shared across to a lot of fans. And Mr. Talal Al-Hamid, as obviously the incoming chairman, he's become a very popular figure on social media immediately. And he reserves special praise for yourself and the supporters club. What contact have you had with Mr. Al-Hamid, and what has been your impressions of him?
So, yeah, I mean, Mr. Al-Hamad had set up a Twitter page, and obviously, you know, we didn't know at first whether it was really Mr. Al-Hamad, and of course it was. He is a very private man, and he's very keen to get across to Wigan and watch us, but we haven't spoke directly to Mr. Al-Hamad. Like I said, the you know, his representatives and Mr. Al-Jasmi's representatives have been very keen to make sure that they speak to all the stakeholders, including the supporters club, the council, Lisa, and so on. I mean, they've got really ambitious plans and really positive plans, and if they come to fruition, and if that's exactly what they do when they come in, then the future is as bright as Mr. Al-Hamad says, you know, hopefully.
Absolutely. In terms of, you've not actually had a direct conversation with him, but people what you've been saying, he seems like a massive football fan as well, which could only stand Wigan Athletic in really good stead.
Yeah, I think his comments about us were from a group perspective, you know, about the supporters club, about the council, and so on. And in actual fact, what has happened is we've all worked together on that. So, you know, I was aware that Alison from the council was liaising, and, you know, Mal asked to be put in contact with Lisa through the supporters club. So I think it's really key that I do say that we've been a team throughout all of this. It's not the supporters club. There's been a large network of people that have worked together to you know, to be that positive force for a potential new owner like the Bahrainis, and undoubtedly they've seen that and thought that it's something they want to be involved in, a town where everybody works together to find a solution to just a really terrible situation that has been administration.
Absolutely. I think over the last 9 months, Wigan Athletic and the Wigan Town have really shown that in times of adversity, they come back fighting, and they fight to the very end. When the club needed the fans, all the stakeholders the most, everyone really stood up and was counted for, with so many great fundraisers, so many great individual achievements, and the team as well on the pitch did an excellent job. Liam Richardson, especially with his leadership. And the next question is a pretty obvious one, and one I'm sure the fans will be dying to hear. Can you provide any insight into what the Phoenix 2021 Limited Group's plans are for Wigan Athletic?
Okay, so the things that they've talked about, and I know it's been mentioned already, but when we've looked at other bidders, there's been some question marks over the academy, and that is the truth. Throughout the time that we've been trying to find a successful purchaser, several of the bidders have put a question mark over the costs of the academy, in relation to whether that gives a sustainable outcome. This group is completely different. They absolutely recognise that the academy has not only potential for the future, but it's literally kept us alive for the past 9 months. If we didn't have Gregor and the young lads in the academy, we would have been trounced every week. There's no doubt about it. We would have been struggling for players. And, the fact that we are where we are in the league now with, the wins that we've had over the past few weeks is incredible. And it's all down to the academy players and, Liam and Gregor and the team. So they recognise that fully, and they have absolutely no plans to do anything negative with the academy. In fact, they want to make it even better. So that is certainly the first priority. The second thing is that Mal Brannigan wants to meet as soon as they're through the door. So as soon as they are through the door in terms of the EFL approval, and I'm hoping it's going to be Easter holidays so that I've got some time for away from school. So I'm hoping for the next 2 to 3 weeks. But Mal wants to meet and discuss some strategies for supporter involvement, some strategies for linking the supporters club to the community trust, potentially a little bit more. The community trust is award winning, so why would the supporters club not work more closely with them? And also looking at the crowdfunder money. So you know from our statement that we are seeking to refund the second crowdfunder, but eventually when the purchase is all through, we should receive back the first crowdfunder money from the administrators. So there will be a large sum of money there that we can do something really positive for the future of Wigan Athletic. We will consult fans, but also the new owners will want to suggest things as well that we can put to the supporters. So that's another thing that we've got on our first agenda. He's talking about potentially, monthly meetings with the fans, with the supporters club, different things like that. I think the first thing we'll do is have a brainstorm of ways we can work together going forward. But yeah, they're very keen to do that. And I think that, without being too over optimistic and too ambitious, they mentioned about they're keen to get back to the Championship. Now, to me, that is, again, a team coming in being realistic. If they'd said, we want to win the Premier League, it would sort of ring alarm bells. But, that's a realistic goal sort of in 3 to 5 years, isn't it? So, again, without being too positive, because I've only met them a handful of times, it's what we would have hoped for throughout this process. Someone to come in and say, we're hoping to be in the Championship within the next 3 to 5 years. We're hoping to make the club sustainable, and we want to grow the academy. Those are sort of 3 things that we would be really keen to hear. If it was 9 months ago and someone had come and put that on the table, we'd have snatched it off them, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. I think it's really realistic and really promising as well, because they're showing real faith in the academy, and the academy staff are absolutely brilliant. Gregory Ock, you got Jay Cochran, Matt Williams, so many unsung heroes in the academy. There's too many to even name, and they are the central point from the under 8s all the way through to the under 18s, the under 23s. I watched the Everton versus Wigan under 18s game last night. I'm sure a lot of fans did, and the amount of talent on show, even outside of the first team, is unbelievable. Sean McGurk, Harry Mathew, Barrow Deco, just 3 players who really caught the eye, and I'm really glad that it's going to be a focal point for the future, because for me, that is one of the biggest selling points about Wigan Athletic. And in terms of the Bahrain group, you mentioned a lot of positive things there, but are you aware of why Wigan, why pick this football club to be a part of?
It's a really good question, Jay, because I was just about to sort of interrupt you and say I've got a couple of little anecdotal things that I picked up from Mal, and also I've been speaking regularly to Mr. Al Jazmi. He's sort of like his investment and business manager, and he's been part of the team that's been involved in this. The first thing is that apparently Wigan is a thing in Bahrain. So in terms of Wigan Athletic Football Club and the dream of getting to the Premier League with Mr. Whelan and then winning the FA Cup, it's sort of it caused a media storm in Bahrain, and lots of people in Bahrain like Wigan and have an affinity with Wigan Athletic Football Club because of that time and that story. Now, I didn't know this at all, and it was this gentleman from the group that told me that and said that they when they heard that it was on the market almost. they wanted to snap it up for that reason and generate a buzz in Bahrain about Wigan being owned by Bahrainis, which to me is very strange. It's a very strange thing. The second thing I wanted to mention was that they've also seen the Bahraini Mad song. Have you seen that by the guy who did the Will Griggs on Fire song?
I've seen Sean Kennedy, and if anyone's not watched it, it's absolutely it's certainly something. It's very entertaining. It's a song about the group to It's Raining Men.
That's the one, and the Bahraini group have said to me that they can't wait to hear it in the stadium. So that's another sort of thing which has come out in the last few days anecdotally, that they've seen that video and they want to hear it as soon as fans are back in the stadium. So, they're only anecdotal connections, but thank goodness they're there, because it's whatever it is about Wigan has sort of ignited the spark for these people to put their millions of pounds in it, and ultimately that is what we needed. So, I don't want to tempt fate or anything like that. Everything, the contracts are exchanging everything, but fingers crossed that everything continues to go as well as it has done in the last week. And I know the EFL has been mentioned throughout this process, and we're waiting for EFL board approval. The EFL in the second half of this administration have been great, really, really great. Communication's been really good with us, and so I expect that the timelines that they've set for that board approval, I expect them to be fulfilled. So, fingers crossed that they are.
It's a really weird and wonderful connection with the group, because you can kind of relate to it as well, because I know where Wigan Athletic, we have fan clubs in Hong Kong, New York, for Will Jones. We've got so many different fan clubs I've seen in Turkey, Brazil. Wigan Athletic is across the globe, and that is majorly due to the achievements of 2013 with the FA Cup final and everything Mr. Whelan achieved in his 25-year reign at the club. It was a really special time, and with the support, with everything you've mentioned so far, it seems very, very promising and very positive. I'm always very cautiously optimistic until a deal's done, because you never know. Over the last 9 months, we've seen so many twists and turns, and it's never over until the signature's on a piece of paper, on the contracts, and ready to go. But in terms of the Wigan Athletic Supporters Club, are you as positive and as happy that Wigan are in safe hands that you've ever felt before?
Ever felt before the last 9 months? Is that what you mean? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I said earlier, I felt that throughout this 9 months, this group have been the most professional that I've seen, in terms of getting the way, as far as they've got, in terms of groups that have got as far as this Bahraini group. I am optimistic, but I'm exactly the same as you, Jay, in terms of, until the ink's dry, I sort of won't believe it fully. But we haven't got to this stage before. We haven't got to exchange of contracts before. And there's lots of planning going on and lots of positive conversations going on. And, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be something positive for Wigan going forward. So, we just have to be optimistic, especially after the last 9 months.
So it's always important to keep the faith and keep believing, as the perfect Wigan mottos are. And with the conversations you've had with the new ownership structure, have you had more specific conversations about what involvement the supporters club may have moving forwards, whether it's a seat on the board, fan representation, and stuff along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, the group, we have to remember that the supporter solution was second money was raised to save the football club in the main, if that was necessary. We did talk about a seat on the board, but there was a lot of people putting in bids where they almost required that money to be able to purchase the football club, and that was never our number one desire. Our number one desire was someone who could fund the football club fully and wouldn't necessarily need the supporters' money. And that's what the Bahraini group are. You know, they're not requiring the funds from the supporters. They are, you know, that Mr. Al Jasmi is the owner of Wigan Athletic, and we don't expect to be to get a share or, you know, anything like that. That's been made clear to us. But in terms of fan representation in club decisions and things like that, they've made it very clear that they would like to regularly speak to the supporters club, but not only the supporters club, other fans groups as well. And Mal's phrase was that his door's always open, and you know, anything that can make the football club better and improve, he will be receptive to. So that's, you know, something not just for us, it's for all fans to think about. So in terms of the supporters club generally, this whole process has reshaped us totally. So, you know, from literally running coaches and doing weekenders and doing dinners, we found ourselves thrust into a world of £1 million football finances and trying to work out, you know, what the losses in the stadium were and various. It's been an incredible experience and learning journey. And it's really important, I think, that we take the supporters club to the next level and really try to make a difference in the game for the future. So, you know, you'll know that we had the petition to look at the owners and directors test, and I know Lisa's gone on record today and yesterday to say that she won't rest until that fan-led review of the owners and directors test and so on has been done. That's something that we as Wigan fans have made a difference to. You know, that's now going to happen because of our lobbying as Wigan fans, as a collective, and because of what we've done in the media. So we've got to keep going with that. So in our statement on Monday, we had an open call for committee members. You know, we're really keen to get more people on board, particularly people with ideas, particularly people with different skill set, you know, and make the supporters club a bigger and better organisation for fans representation in Wigan for the future. So, you know, I would encourage anybody who is interested in taking an active role to get on our website and contact us.
Are you hoping that almost some new blood in the supporters club could help propel you to that next level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll know that we're waiting to become a trust. So one of the reasons, it's a strange one really, we're Wigan Athletic Supporters Club. And if we want to become Wigan Athletic Supporters Trust and become more of, you know, a sort of a community business society, basically, so that we can take advantage of more schemes and become more professional in terms of our outlook, we have to wait till the new owners are in situ. It's a strange thing, but they have to give us permission to become Wigan Athletic Supporters Trust in terms of the name. So that's one of the things that we're waiting for. And then we will immediately convert to a trust as soon as the new owners are in. And that, again, that will take us to that next sort of professional level. So we do want to become, you know, more active with the FSA, who have been absolutely fantastic throughout this with us. You know, and we want to support national footballing issues with the FSA as a professional organisation, and they're supporting us in that trust conversion. So, you know, things like that we want to do in the future.
I think it sounds very exciting. And you mentioned in one of your previous answers, previously the supporters club used to specialise in the coach trips, the dinners, the weekends away, and obviously it was not set up to deal with what happened with the administration. So who has been instrumental from the outside in supporting you, giving advice and guiding you in the right direction?
So you're absolutely right. We weren't originally set up for that, but what we've managed to do is, as you quite rightly say, call upon people who've been fantastic. And some people we haven't mentioned that much. So I'm gonna just take my time and make sure I sort of say everybody in this little bit. But I mean, the first I've mentioned the FSA, and they are an organisation that they're unsung heroes, because they're seen as lobbyists, but actually they've got a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of really, really knowledgeable people in the FSA that have been, involved in ownership of football clubs and so on. They've been fantastic. They were the people who recommended us our legal firm. So Erwin Mitchell now represents the Supporters Club, and they specialise in football representation for supporters trusts and football clubs as well. So they've been fantastic in terms of giving us legal advice. What fans probably don't know is that there is a small group of Wigan investors. All 5-6 of these local families are sponsors of the football club and have been for many years. I won't mention them by name individually, but they were willing to put not only their own time but their own money into the supporters solution, to the tune of collectively over £1 million. That would have been what would have gone into the supporters solution. But not only that, they were always at the end of a phone, and we're talking about, really professional business people with a lot of knowledge and a lot of contacts, that just meant that if one of us at the supporters club needed some advice or a sounding board, that they were there. We've had support from the people at the football club. So Ash, Nick, as you know, who has left now. I've got to mention Outwork, they are the current club's marketing and graphics and everything, videos and everything in the club. Between the team of the supporters club, Jonathan, Lisa, Outwork, and the people at the football club, that drove that crowdfunder. The second crowdfunder, where we raised £650,000 to £700,000 in a week. Those people were the driving force behind that, and it will always be, to me, incredible, an absolutely incredible thing that those people did, along with the fans getting on board. So I need to mention all those people. Murray at Crowdfunder, and Stripe as well. Stripe are the financial sort of holding of Crowdfunder. And both of those organisations, again, have been really supportive in terms of holding the monies in escrow and making sure it's secure and safe, and giving us peace of mind that the refund process will be fluid and we'll be able to do it. I'm trying to think, I don't want to miss anybody out. We've had things like WhatsApp groups. So we have this WhatsApp group called WAF supporters. And anytime I just need a little moan, I can just put something in. I think you're in it, aren't you, Jay?
Yeah, I think I've been in it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of this one.
A little moan or a little worry, and we can just reassure each other that everything's okay. So Mud Hutter. So again, the Mud Hutter is a Wigan fanzine, PWU, Wigan podcast. All of those people have been there for each other, even if it's just quietly somebody sending a message or saying everyone's doing a great job, please pass on thanks. And of course, I keep mentioning the supporters club, but there is a committee of people. We meet regularly, and throughout this process, we've met regularly as a committee, feeding back to each other, bouncing ideas off each other. And those people have been fantastic. So, and of course yourself, I mentioned yourself, but I'm sure I've missed somebody out.
Yeah,
Lisa, the council, I've mentioned these people before. At some point we'll do some sort of, we'll do a list, we'll do a top 10 rundown, Jay, of, it'd have to be top 50 of people involved in this process. There's just so many people that have supported us. And it's just meant that as a team, we've done a really good job. I don't know any other football club where supporters have had such an involvement and oversight over such a dreadful time. And so we once again, Wigan are unique in that.
Absolutely, and I'm going to cast everyone back to that fundraiser, the second crowdfunder, the Save Our Club appeal, because over £600,000 were raised in a pandemic. Wigan's a working town. A lot of people had lost their jobs. A lot of people were on furlough, but they still give everything they had to save the football club. And if you're an outsider to Wigan, you probably think the club will not be a massive loss in terms of the bigger football picture, but it's really proven that amongst the community, it is everything. It's a life and soul, and it's so special for everyone involved. And I always say to people, if you're not a Wigan Athletic fan, you just simply won't get it. You won't understand it. Sean Maloney said it perfectly a couple of months before it even happened, the administration. And that crowdfunder weekend was unbelievable. Victor Moses donated 20,000. Reece James donated 3,000 and tagged all his ex-Wigan teammates, Chelsea teammates. Everyone sharing it around, and it was spectacular. Did you always feel like that second crowdfund had a life of its own?
Yes, I remember a friend of mine, as each night as we did it, and we got the players donating, and we were putting sort of updates on the big amounts when we got to 100, 150, 200. A friend of mine, I remember, I was up every night till 2 a.m. I remember him sending a text, and it said, get to bed, get some sleep. The snowball will keep rolling while you sleep. And that's exactly what it felt like. It was like a snowball growing every single day. It was incredible. The Reece James thing, we still get retweets off that now. Every single day, I get a retweet through the Supporters Club website, Twitter, from a follower of Reece James or somebody who we follow. I actually think it ended up with Kim Kardashian at one point, that tweet. So, yeah, another story in the history of Wigan Athletic. I have to say I did miss somebody, Jay, so I have to mention Tom Flower at the Community Trust, who again has been fantastic. He was looking into at one point Community Trust trading arms to see if we could find a way to mobilise the supporter solution even more. There was no stone unturned in this process to find a way out of it. I'm convinced that if the Bahrainis hadn't come in, or if we weren't able to find a solution, there would have been a supporter solution there, because there were so many people driving it.
Absolutely. Kim Kardashian's a Wigan fan. I never thought I'd ever say that before, and what a great context that is. But it's absolutely incredible that the finish line is now in sight. Fingers crossed, everything gets a green light, and the saga is going to finally come to an end. And you mentioned there that obviously with the support solution and everyone involved, it gave us a great chance, and it was a massive support mechanism for everyone. Was there any point in this process where you felt a takeover was unlikely and liquidation looked like the most likely option?
I never believed we would be liquidated. I will be honest and say that there were moments where I thought the supporter solution was the only solution. That is true. A lot of moments, and I would ring people up and say, I feel like it's us or nothing. It feels insurmountable, but we've just got to do it. And I would receive the same feedback. They would say, we just got to do it, Caroline. You've got to do it. They've got to do it. All the different people got to come together, and we've just got to do it. I never felt we'd be liquidated, and I don't think the administrators ever felt that either. They would always come back to us and say, where you at? If they had worries, where you at with that supporter solution? We weren't there in terms of before the Bahrainis came in. We didn't have the 5 million or 7 million, but we were starting, the irons in the fire were starting to get hot, and therefore it never dipped where I thought we were going to lose our football club. But never say never. So I'm just sort of holding out for the ink to dry on that paper.
You mentioned the administrators there, and the administrators have drawn a lot of criticism from the supporters over the last 9 months. And what do you make of the administrators having dealt with them on a daily basis?
Gosh, that's probably the most difficult question you've asked me all night there, Jay. I have never had any dealings with any sort of insolvency or, liquidation or administration before this process. So it's difficult because I don't have a point of reference. I think that in terms of Wigan, generally I can't understand administration fees. I can't understand the amount of money it costs to do an administration process. It is generally fairly obscene, and I think that some sort of governance of that process generally needs to be done. I think that ultimately they've run the football club for 9 months, and the Bahrainis are taking over quite a clean business in terms of, we don't have masses of debt that they're buying into or anything like that. But in terms of dealing with administrators, never want to do it again. Never, ever, never want to do it again. And I'm grateful that they kept communication channels open with us. But in the same, I have to say, I've been honest with them as well. There's been times where I've said, the person I've dealt with mainly has been Dean Watson, and then Paul Stanley. But Dean, I will ring him up and say, what on earth was that statement? Fake news? What what? So I've been really honest with them in terms of some of the mistakes that they've made potentially. But I suppose when this is all over, they might have more stories than I've got. I don't know. But administration is one of the most horrible things to happen to a football club like this that you love. I can't. The selling off of Exton was heartbreaking. The selling off of some of the players that have had to go because of it, and could we have got more money for them? That's the sort of thing that I'll always question about the process. But that ultimately they're not Wigan fans, are they, the administrators? So they just have to do a job which is really quite cold.
Yeah, I think in terms of administration, there's no affiliation there. There's no emotion to it. It's purely insolvency, and I think that's probably where it kind of draws a lot of the comparisons and the criticisms. And after going through everything, do you think being one of the few people who's seen what's been going on behind the scenes, as a fan, has it made it easier or harder for you?
Oh, another good question. Again, somebody said at the start to me, sort of after a couple of months, what you're doing might damage you as a fan. That was another quote that someone said, because seeing the amount of money lost in football, for example, the average, it's no secret that the average annual loss in League One is £2 million. So seeing things like that, seeing the stories that have come out about players wanting to leave and things like that, it just it does hurt you when it's a team that you've supported since you were a little girl or little boy, whatever. It hurts people in this whole process. I think that not being able to watch as well has been really difficult. So not actually being able to go and support the lads and support the team has really meant that everybody's felt really disconnected from it. So I'm just hopeful that when I can get back in the stadium and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're in League One and we can start the new season with high hopes. I'll sort of just think about all the horrible stuff that's happened in 9 months as a bad memory or a bad dream, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. And has this process changed your relationship with the club as a fan in terms of, I know a lot of fans have really reassessed their relationship with football because you only realise how much something means to you when it's on the verge of being taken away.
Yeah. I mean, I've always sort of given, for 20 years as chairman, my heart and soul to the club. But there have been times throughout this where I've just thought, I can't carry on. I know the committee have worked so hard. Different people have said it's just too hard. But it's only when you get the positive outcome, again, optimistically, the positive outcome, that you just sort of realise that the reasons you've done all this for the club, raise the money, and what everybody have put into, is just because it's in your heart, isn't it? And it just shows that it's a very strange thing, football, and Wigan is even stranger. I think that once you get the bug, that's it. So hopefully the Bahrainis will get the bug pretty quickly.
Absolutely, and I think they will. It's a club that once you're a part of the club, you immediately become one of us, one of the Wigan fans, one of the Wigan people. And you mentioned there you have moments where you're questioning, is this worthwhile? It's well, not questioning if it's worthwhile, obviously questioning the stress and obviously what you've been going through. How have you personally coped with the stress of your day job as a deputy head teacher in the middle of a pandemic, on top of the crisis at Wigan Athletic?
You make it sound like, definitely a future feature-length film, that, Jay. How have I coped with it? Well, you just sort of get on with it, but it's not just me, having really good people throughout the whole process to lean on, to speak to. I mentioned before about just people dropping a message, not heard from you for ages, or I've heard this, I've heard that, can I help with this? That's the main thing, really. And again, I could mention people very close to me that have been very, very, very supportive, but there's no need to. There's been so many people that have helped each other throughout this, that and that's something for the future. When on Monday I sort of spent the evening emailing out people and saying thanks to you and thanks for this, and it was lovely to receive those messages back to say, same to you. So I think we've made so many new friends and acquaintances that, and everybody signed off with, see you at the game, hopefully have a pint at the game. So that ultimately, that's what we've all been driving for, isn't it? To be able to go to future games, and now we have more of a kindred spirit because of what we've been through. So, yeah.
It's certainly a stronger connection, a stronger affiliation to the football club. How many hours a week, roughly, do you think you've spent on Wigan-related matters?
Very difficult to say. An average, it's very difficult to say, honestly. There's some weeks where, it was just a sort of cursory thing every day. Some weeks, every single day I was, there's some, Zoom the pandemic was almost a curse, because it meant that you could spend hours on Zoom to countless different investors and potential bidders, and you had to sort of sift through whether they were genuine or, but again, all life experience, all really, really, no time is wasted, because you learn something from it. So yeah, it was very varied, and I always said write a book, but nobody would actually be interested, I don't think, in the ins and outs of it. But yeah, there's certainly a few anecdotes from everybody who can involved in this process who come together. I'm sure we might have a supporters club dinner.
I'm sure plenty of people
share the stories. Yeah,
I'm sure plenty of people will be interested in reading a book. And in terms of, you mentioned there, you've spent plenty of Zoom calls with potential bidders and potential investors, debating whether they're credible and whether they're serious. How is that process like to do that? And how do you assess whether a bidder is serious or not serious?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you don't want to close any doors at all. You learn that pretty quickly, that you've got to listen to everybody, you've got to pick up every email, because you don't know. And the administrator said that actually as well. You don't know where the next Wigan owner is coming from. So you can't possibly say, oh, I'm not going to take that call because they don't seem like they're credible. I've searched them on the internet. So it is a long process, and you got to sort of talk to people, and again, people say, well, why are the supporters club involved in this? Simply because the funds that we raised have given us that ability to have an involvement, and it's been a positive experience. It's been useful for the whole process to have that experience. So it's not about us deciding. We don't make decisions whether they're credible or not, or we haven't done that. It's just sort of having that dialogue as fans with those people to see what their plans are and see, that sort of thing. And like I said, it's been useful, and it meant that when the Spanish did come out, when the Spanish bid fell through, we were able to speak to the administrators about our views as supporters on how the next stage of the process would run. And they listened, because of what happened with the Spanish, and they knew that we'd met with bidders and things. So, for example, the fact that they didn't offer immediate exclusivity, and we were able to speak to the EFL directly at Supporters Club and say, would you consider, doing multiple checks on different people in terms of the fit and proper persons? And they agreed to that. And that meant that, there was nobody sort of blocked out like that had happened with the Spanish. So we've been able to have an influence in a positive way over the whole process.
With the EFL, obviously, they did do the pre-vetting with any potential owner. Earlier in the podcast, you said they've been really, really, really helpful in the second half of the last 9 months. How was he in the first half of the process?
I sort of, the reason I say this first half is that I do have a gripe about the initial points deduction. But as time, and the same, Lisa said the same, that, we were really disgusted at the start that had been inflicted on us through the actions of, our previous owners and so on. And that's why we started the petition, and I wrote an open letter to the EFL, which was considered by them. But then, of course, at the hearing, they still deducted the points, and it just meant relegation. And so that's what I meant by at the start. But as you work with them and speak to them, their rules are very black and white, and they, in the words of the gentleman I've been working with at the EFL, he said, we've got to protect the interests of all of the Football League clubs, and it's not just, if you do something for one club, you've got to do it for other clubs. So that with working with the EFL, I have sort of gained a little bit more insight into their sort of rules and the reasons why they do certain things certain ways, but I do know also that they're willing to reflect, and Trevor Birch is the new sort of head of the EFL, and I'm sure he'll be looking to improve things. We've worked with him again since Christmas, since he came in.
It's a great answer, and I imagine with the EFL, a big thing they need to consider is the integrity of the competition, because like you said, if they do something for one club, they'll be expected to do it for every single club in the Football League. And over the last 9 months, it's been very eventful, to say the very least. What do you feel like you've learned the most from this takeover saga?
I haven't really reflected on what I've learned the most yet. I'll perhaps reflect on it all, and we'll talk about that in the future. But the most, but things that I've learned, that I guess it's like a pause. This way, I think it's very important that you always say factual things. So, make sure that when you are talking to people, you're always honest, you do the right thing, and you are fact-based, and that stands you in good stead. I think building trust in relationships with people is something that I've learned a lot about in terms of, in football, and that the power of supporters in football is bigger than any football name or any amount of money. If you haven't got the fans behind you, then that's where a football club is in real trouble. And as you've seen from the last 9 months, Wigan has got a fantastic fan base that have kept the club going over the last 9 months, and that that means that our, as you quite rightly said, Jay, our children and grandchildren will be able to watch it for the future, and hopefully they'll look back and say that the fans of 2020 and 2021 saved the football club, and genuinely, the fans have had a massive influence on saving this football club for the future.
I couldn't echo that statement enough, because I think in 20 years' time, when we look back on this as a distant memory, we will obviously reflect on the negative side of things and what happened, the players that left, that the training ground being sold and other things of that nature. But ultimately, we'll be proud because we've been through a great deal collectively and individually through the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic in personal lives. And in terms of, I asked you the question about reflecting, and this is another reflection question that I'm going to hit you with, and feel free to obviously bat it away if you're not quite ready for this one. But is there anything throughout this process that you've done that you wish you did slightly differently?
I think I've been asked this before, and I said no, which seems a little bit, a little bit like it can't possibly be true. But I normally, with my day job, I'm like a bull in a china shop. I just want to get things done, get them done, get it sorted. But the people I've worked with throughout this have made me more reflective and made me just sort of stop and think, what's the best thing to do in this situation? If I just give you an example that, for example, like putting statements out. I'm not a sort of person who's used to writing statements about football and then putting them out. We check them, we reflect on them, we make sure it's right, we make sure that the wording is right. So I know that seems like a very small detail, but this whole process has taught me that things have got to be thought about before you act. So if in answer to your question, if the whole process happened again, I don't think we would do anything differently. I feel like at every stage, because of the people involved and the advice we've sought, we've done the right thing. I think we've had a couple of lucky moments where we've followed our gut and it's worked, and it could have gone a different way, but generally, I just feel like the whole team have done the right thing throughout. So I'm not sure I would do anything differently, really.
Do you think, as a collective group now, as the supporters club, it'll lead you more well equipped for the future for anything that may happen along the lines of any circumstance, really?
Yeah, I think the team of the supporters club committee now are really sort of much more gelled. We've met more regularly. Normally we would only sort of meet before the games once every 4 to 6 weeks. We've been meeting on Zoom every couple of weeks for the past, particularly when things are active, like the past few weeks. So we're a really good team now. And I think that there are others on the periphery that we're trying to sort of persuade to come on board with us officially that may do that. So I think in the future, the supporters club will hopefully go from strength to strength and continue to be a really good representation of Wigan fans in the future.
Absolutely. And I know you briefly mentioned them earlier, but I'd like to ask further about these three people. But how helpful have Lisa Nandy, Jonathan Jackson and Andy Burnham all been throughout this process?
So Jonathan is, always at the end of a phone. Obviously, he was pivotal in the crowdfunding, and Lisa mentioned again last night that he's worked for nothing. He hasn't had a job since he was made redundant, and every time I ring him and say, Jonathan, support a solution, we need to mobilise again, and he'll say, oh, I was just sort of looking for jobs, but go on, I'll put it on hold again. So literally his life has been on hold to try to make a solution. Lisa has been on the end of a phone again any time that I need it. I have to say that I'm not a big fan of International Women's Day. I think it should just be, International Humans Day. But myself and Lisa very often have funny conversations about certain things, not only in football, but also that's been going on in education over the last few months. I'm sure we feel like we could do a better job than some of them, but that's just me talking, not Lisa. People like Gabby Williamson and so on, but again, that's just me. And of course, Andy has. I've not had any direct contact with Andy to be perfectly honest, but he's been vociferous, I know, in terms of being in contact with the EFL and being in contact with the people involved in sort of the not the administration of Wigan, but the overall process of the fan-led review in the future and things like that. So, yeah, those three people. And I'll also mention Alison McKenzie, particularly Paul McKevitt, David Molyneux at the council, who, again, really busy people, but will just meet with us and see if there's any solutions that they could help with. Besides the supporters club, they're the sort of four factions that have really meant that we've been able to mobilise things.
Absolutely. And it's been a real learning curve, as you touched on earlier. And before I did the podcast, I often ask people that I'm close with if they've got any questions for the guests I may have coming on. And there was no real questions apart from just to say thank you. And I'd just like to ask, are you aware of just how grateful the supporters are for all of your hard work that yourself and the Supporters Club Committee have shown throughout this period?
I think throughout this, it's difficult because we're ordinary people. So I'm going to name all the committee now, so hopefully I don't miss anybody out. But Mick, Adam, Marie, Norma, Eddie, Andrew. Have I said Adam? Yeah. Jeff, Jason. And I'm going to mention Spike as well, who we lost during this process as well. Ian Carter, if you know Ian. All of the... I've not missed anybody out. If I've missed anybody out, I'm sorry, committee there, because I went through it. I should have had a list up, but I don't think I have. They, throughout it, we've had stick, but then, I learned very quickly in my day job that you can't get anything done without breaking a few eggs. You can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. And the people who do nothing never get any stick. That's another one, So, do we know how grateful people are? We don't. That's not what we do it for. The committee does it because we love Wigan Athletic, and we just want to, represent the fans. We just want the fans' views to be heard. We want people to be able to travel to away games and support our team away. We want the football club to continue for the future. So, it's not gratitude that we do it for, but it has been very nice to receive all the messages over the last few days. So, thank you to everybody who's reached out to anyone in the supporters club to say thank you, because it has really brightened our day after 9 months of potential misery.
I think that's a great answer, and it's truly been one of the most darkest chapters in the club's 89-year history, and now the Phoenix is rising from the fire, so to speak, with the Phoenix 2021 Limited Group. And I've actually just drawn a comparison in my head, which is quite a weird one, but I'm pretty sure the old Wigan Athletic mascot back in the day, there used to be Phoenix and Blue. So that's a connection, left connection that people might not have necessarily clocked onto, but it's a connection which we'll take. And it's been a fantastic podcast. I'm great to listen to you and some of your stories. And I know a lot of fans are very grateful for the work you've done, as well as the Supporters Club Committee, Lisa Nandy, Jonathan Jackson, and a lot of the individuals involved, the unsung heroes who won't necessarily get the credit in the widespread media, and so to speak. And for my final question, I'm sure you're delighted that it's the final question, but is there anything you'd like to add or any messages you'd like to say to the Wigan Athletic supporters?
Well, just that, you know, we've been fantastic together, and I know that there's been times where we were totally unsure if we were going to have a football club for the future. But I think we've just got to now get behind the, fingers crossed, potential new owners, and we've just got to look to the future. So I would say as soon as season ticket comes out, everybody buy a season ticket. You know, we're looking at what to do in terms of the next steps for the refunds and things like that. But, you know, you might consider using your refund to buy a season ticket maybe in the future, because that will really help, I think, the next few months. And we want a massive crowd on, don't we, when we're singing Bahraini Mad in the stadium. So that's it really, you know, just let's get behind them, and the new era of Wigan Athletic is Middle Eastern.